Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys and the Sounds in Cinema podcast. The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language, and I will not go to my room. Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast. This is a Pink Panther edition. We're finishing up with the Pink Panther Strikes Again. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man building a ray gun to disappear me, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hi, Tom.
Yes, here. First you must wear the special anesthetic cotton wool, you know. Wear it over the eyes. On no account look out from under it. That would ruin the whole effect of the anesthetic on the eyes. What a run.
Right?
I swear that they retooled some old vaudeville sketch for that dentist routine.
Good stuff.
As soon as they start doing it, I was like, this seems like something you would have seen in vaudeville in the 1940s.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of slightly adapted for these two characters.
Yeah. Indeed. Like so much. Well, we have a disagreement between the two of us on this movie and the last movie, both in our ranking and how much costume work we see in the character of Clouseau disguises.
To be fair, it's close.
Plentiful
it's a
for
close
both.
Race. Yeah. I don't think either of these movies should be proud about the amount of costumes they have, the amount of disguises they have in them.
Correct. All right, well, here we are, finishing it up for now. And by finishing it up, I mean the 4 movies we were willing to do. And we got 4 more to go at some point. We decided to break the series up. But we're finishing with the Pink Panther Strikes Again. It's a 1976 film, directed by Blake Edwards, of course.
Yes.
72% on Rotten Tomatoes. So you're starting to get that law of diminishing returns, at least from the critics. But
I thought it was more of a critical darling than that.
Okay.
Interesting. I mean, that's pretty high for a comedy. Let's face it.
It's pretty high. Yeah.
Yeah, for a comedy that's the 5th film in the series at this point.
Yeah, correct.
So,
and except for the outlier,
that's a good return.
Yeah, it seems fine. I think it just seems diminished in the face of all the other movies except Inspector Clouseau, of course.
Sure,
because they're all in the 90s and 80s.
Oh, interesting. I always viewed this or perceived this as that this was the kind of return to form of the Sellers Pink Panther movies. And I guess the reason that I put it behind Return the Pink Panther is I was a little disappointed going back to it that it didn't it kind of didn't live up to my memory of it. So it's probably quite an unfair brush to tar it with.
Yeah, and I had the opposite reaction.
Sure, and
I thought this would be the lesser fare. Even, well, I was about to say even coming to the end, but obviously we're not coming to the end in total.
Right.
But you figure that this is where a drop-off would start, because pretty soon we're going to start getting cousins and other people
illegitimate Italian children.
Yeah.
Yes. It's gonna go cuckoo bananas, but right now. Well, this movie is cuckoo bananas, but it's cuckoo bananas with Peter Sellers and Herbert Lom, which is the best kind of cuckoo bananas.
So that's
right?
fine. Right.
Yeah. But it is it's a mad turn in the series. Let's not pretend otherwise.
Yes. Yeah. I agree with that.
Story-wise.
Yeah, the story's insane, but I kind of like that. Like I said, this movie's directed by Blake Edwards. Let's take a look at the end of his career with
Oh, dear God, no.
You know, the Man Who Loved Women, Mickey and Maude, A Fine Mess, Blind Date, Sunset. These are the movies in the 80s. Then we go to Skin Deep, and Switch, both of which I saw in the theater.
Wait, is that
As actually most of those.
what is Switch an Adam Sandler movie?
No, Switch is the one. Switch is the one.
What am I thinking of? The one with
wait.
the remote control.
Yeah,
turns him
actually, I
into
think
a
that
knob.
might be called Switch too.
Oh, well, there you
right.
go. I'm
Yeah.
not too far off then. Okay.
This was the one with Ellen Barkin
Oh no. I've
and
never
Jimmy
seen it.
Smits.
Wow. Well, those are two great actors.
It's like a body switching movie. You know, he's a womanizing
no.
man,
I don't want to see those two switch bodies. No,
and,
thank you.
and he goes into Ellen Barkin's
No.
body.
No, thank you.
It's a crazy movie.
She becomes a lisping Hispanic person. Love Jimmy Smits. He's
I'm
the best.
gonna make you watch that movie.
Find a reason for us to watch it, and
Yeah.
that's the real challenge. How is that in any way something that we would watch? There probably is a Switch 2 out there, though.
Ooh.
But I wanted to go back to the circumstances surrounding A Fine Mess. Is that anything to do with Laurel and Hardy, or no?
That's Ted Danson and Howie Mandel.
Well, definitely not then. Okay, there's the answer to that question. There's no way those two could in any way be a rebooted Laurel and Hardy.
I've seen the movie. I can't tell you what it's about, though. I remember Blind Date quite well.
Yes, Blind Date.
Yeah.
Sunset, no idea.
That's with James Garner and Bruce Willis.
Wow.
And then Skin Deep was really famous. It's with John Ritter, and it's most famous for a glow-in-the-dark condom scene where the glow-in-the-dark penis is just bobbing around.
Oh, okay. Well,
in the dark.
Again, that was a hugely influential shtick, because I've seen that redone in numerous sitcoms over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So, once again, Blake Edwards is leading
charge.
the world in comedy. Yeah.
For this
even in
movie
his
too,
darkest
because
days.
yeah, for this movie too, on a budget of $6 million, no funky awards for this one though. Just in the USA and in the world, $33.8 million.
It's got some good production values, I'd say. Mm-hmm. It kind of feels. I was wondering, and I'm sure our listeners are getting tired of me trying to track the evolution of the Bond film series through the Pink Panther movies at this point. I mean, I know you are, but so I can only assume they are too. But nonetheless, I do wonder whether the Pink Panther saw an opening, because this is right at the point where it looks like the Bond series is going to go away forever, post Man with the Golden Gun, pre Spy Who Loved Me, and I wonder whether, with all the kind of Bondianness of this movie, they saw a kind of at least an opening in the market where a Bond film might have gone that they could exploit. I don't know.
It's a lot of conjecture for I don't know.
Your silence says it all. It's a bridge too far for you. I mean, he has a ray gun, and he's trying to blow up the world.
Right.
So it's not too big a leap, is it? That they might have been trying to steal away some of those Bond books.
Yeah, I admit freely that this movie feels more like a Bond movie.
Yeah.
Or a spoof of a Bond movie than any of the other movies we've watched.
Which
He's
is
full-on super villain in this movie.
Yeah.
Dreyfus.
Which is remarkable, because we also commented that Inspector Clouseau is exactly the same, and yet it never feels like an Inspector Clouseau movie, and yet this manages to walk that tightrope of doing, a pretty full-on Bond spoof and also a legitimate Pink Panther movie at the same time. So.
Yeah, agreed.
they don't. It's interesting. They don't try and avoid the problems of Inspector Clouseau. They actually try and they try and fix their own mess. They're fine. They're fine. Howie Mandel, Ted Danson mess.
Right. Where to begin? Let's begin at the beginning. This hospital cold open is one of the reasons I think I put this movie above the last movie. I think it's funny.
It's always the kind of go-to scene that people pull clips on when they're celebrating this movie. Always like this scene, and rightly so. I mean, what's remarkable about it, first of all, and we said this, at the end of the return of the Pink Panther episode, this is the first Clouseau film that continues the story directly from the end of the last movie. We haven't done that yet.
True.
So, and the first thing we see is a rehabilitated Dreyfus. So it even accounts for the events that have happened between the beginning of this movie and the end of the last movie.
Sure.
That's a completely new style of storytelling for this series.
Absolutely.
So it's revolutionary. And I think as well, once the scene begins, it's really helped by the fact that Herbert Lom and this other actor playing the psychiatrist are so good together.
They're
playing it entirely straight, and they're just enjoying being two character actors playing the scene straight down the middle, and that works in and of itself. Like, it's actually very enjoyable, like, non-comedically. But you also know the specter of Clouseau is hanging around. So that makes it doubly entertaining.
Well, you have the specter of Clouseau, but you also have the specter of Dark Dreyfus.
Yes.
That is just lurking somewhere below the surface, right below the surface. And to your point about both actors playing it straight, and they are, just straight down the middle, and yet I think because of all the background stuff we have about the character, it's still funny. It still comes across to me as very funny.
But I don't know, they could have hammed this opening scene up.
Absolutely. Right.
And, a lesser comedic director and actors would. And that allows them to. We talked before about inflating the balloon. The inflating the comedic balloon, and this is all about inflating that balloon, because we go to the extreme of having this idyllic music come in, and that's kind of soaring just at the moment that Clouseau arrives. So the kind of irony of this idealized scene by the in the grounds of the psychiatric hospital next to the pond with the trees, the music, and then Clouseau
where
arrives.
Somebody can get sane.
Yeah. And it's just this sense of impending disaster.
Yeah.
And it literally hits him on the back of the head.
Yeah. The number of times he falls into the lake and gets hit, and the slow build to his insanity.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just loved it so much. I thought it was so funny.
Yeah, it's
and
yeah.
It almost completely hinges on the perfect performance from Dreyfus. From Herbert Lom, but
from Herbert Lom. There's also a great outtake from this scene with Herbert Lom descending into the water, and he keeps looking back at Blake Edgerton saying more, and he's like, yeah, keep going, and then he gets to about the level of his neck and he says, Blake, the rug is gonna come off. And he's like, that's fine.
He knows what's funny.
Yeah, but he knows what's funny, but also Herbert Lom, there's no sense that he's joking around. He's literally saying, it's like, my wig is gonna fall off my head if I go any deeper into here. And Blake Edwards was like, yeah, that's why I asked you to get in the river, wasn't it, really? Yeah, and also in this scene, we, get the invention of Sideshow Bob. Before there was Sideshow Bob, there was Herbert Lom's Inspector Dreyfus, because he steps on a rake and it goes straight into the face, into the forehead. Yeah,
great.
And I thought,
and then he falls back into the river.
And I thought this was, just a passing inspiration for Sideshow Bob. But if you look at the rest of the movie and how he becomes like a supervillain, hell-bent on revenge against one of his colleagues, you've got to think this was the genesis of that character.
It does very much. It feels like the episode with his brother.
Yes, yeah.
It feels like that.
Well, when he becomes, like, there's a couple of episodes where he becomes megalomaniacal. The one with the air show blimp and...
Yeah, that one too, right.
Yeah, it's... So I think we've already noted those connections, that some of the editing jokes they took from Shot in the Dark, so I wouldn't be at all surprised if this was where Sideshow Bob was also created.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, I guess the sort of the flies in the ointment here... We're back with the catchphrases, the bump.
Yeah.
The sort of repeating back words, which is kind of it's already a tired bit even in the last movie. And then I don't know what to make of the anal sex gag. It's like casual homophobia taking a pornographic turn in the 1970s. It's very Last Tango.
At the beginning, in the cold open of your comedy movie.
It's very Last Tango in Paris, and I wonder whether it's a direct reference to that.
Maybe.
It's so on the nose. But yes, I mean it's such a great sequence, and it's self-contained. It's like a mini movie. It builds to that crescendo of him going insane in real time and chasing
like a rabid dog,
chasing Clouseau out of the parking lot.
Right.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's a really strong opening for the movie, and it tends to be what people draw on when they're arguing for this movie, and it's easy to see why.
Well, and in maybe the ranking episode, one of our episodes, you talked about certain bits that sort of rise above the movie itself and sort of enter the consciousness. And I think this movie has the most famous tiny scene.
Agreed.
Out of probably any of these movies, the one that people remember the most, I think.
I agree.
With the dog. The bit with the dog.
Yeah, the dog is absolutely yes. That is not my dog.
Yeah.
And it's it's the perfect. It's a perfect joke, right? It's the perfect. Yeah. It's the perfect joke, and it's just told again straight down the middle, and works incredibly well.
Yeah.
And then of course we're.
Cartoon credits.
We started strong, but we're gonna get even stronger because we're. I mean, this is. It's also worth pointing out that this is also the first time in this series. We've already mentioned that this is the beginning of serial storytelling in the Pink Panther series, but it's also the first time they've ever kind of doubled down on everything.
Yeah. Right.
Cast, director. Panther, music. There's no backsliding this time. There's no they're sticking with this relaunched version of the Pink Panther.
Yeah, they're saying we'll double down.
Yeah, we'll double down on everything, and that's the first time they've ever really, they each movie previously has kind of been a departure from the last one in some way.
Sure,
but this first one that is building.
This movie says, "Excuse me, everyone, I'm going to play the table."
Yeah, and you can see the whole movie as a sort of deep dive on one plot element of the series, which is the Dreyfus-Sellers relationship.
Correct.
So that's now the new focal point of the series, but it's rather than them kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, it's kind of organically grown out of the last movie, this movie, and then Shot in the Dark as well, in a way that the other movies kind of haven't followed on from the last one, I would say. Yeah. So I think it's a really strong development of what they've already got. And it's a great one of the best Pink Panther title sequences as well.
I was gonna say because they're even doubling down on the thing they did last time by placing them.
Yeah, completely. Yes. Yeah.
alongside popular culture. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. The history of popular film culture through the Pink Panther. We get,
Dracula singing in the rain.
Hitchcock, Batman,
Hitchcock. Yeah.
silent movie comedy.
Batman. I mean, King Kong, Sound of Music.
Yeah, and they saved the best. We'll get there when we do our credit check, but they saved the best till last. They take it right up to the present day at the end of the movie. But I'd frankly watch conservatively another 20 minutes of the Pink Panther reenacting classic Hollywood movies.
You really love it.
I just feel like, first of all, there's an endless supply of material, right? You could
Sure.
just keep having him turn into a different famous movie character. Maybe as Clark, I'd like to see him as Clark Gable, something like maybe a Cary Grant here and there. So, it's excellent.
Agreed.
And again, that is the sense of doubling down. Like in the last title sequence was all about how we're a big franchise now, and this is saying, we're as big as a Batman, we're as big as Hitchcock, we're as big as King Kong.
Need Denzel Washington yelling for us in the streets. That's what this movie wants.
It's doubly bombastic.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the end of it, because Clouseau comes home, and it's a bit of a letdown that they repeat a rip the pants joke, because we'd seen that before when he tries to put his key in the door and rips his pants.
Well, it's a kind of this is where he does the tap dancing and trouser ripping, and I think this is again like a standard setting scene. I think they're going in a more sort of vaudevillian direction in this movie, and I think that's the calling card of that. But I agree. I think they could have come up with something else.
Yeah.
If they'd wanted to. But I like the tap dancing.
Yeah, I agree. I like Kato hiding on top of the four-poster bed.
Yeah, well, the best thing about this scene is how it plays with the previous Kato attacks, because he looks in all the places that Kato has attacked from before. So again, we go back, I think we said this when we talked about Shot in the Dark, like sequels can just get a laugh from the audience's memory.
Yeah.
Right? The Frasier Lilith line.
When he looks in the freezer, that's an automatic laugh.
But that's great. But that's as a phrase you've coined, sequel smart.
Yes, right.
That's sequel smart, because it's economical. It's economical use of screen time. The audience already know.
It's an economical laugh, is what it is.
Yeah.
Such an easy laugh, like you said.
Why not use the format to your advantage?
Absolutely.
And I guess, there's a couple of added elements here. Now we've got fast motion as well as slow motion.
I saw that. I wrote down...
Which is your classic stylistic inversion.
Yeah, I wrote down film sped up, followed by immediate slow motion. And my note was, they'll just do whatever the fuck they want now.
Yep, pretty much. And they've also got Dreyfuss watching via Periscope.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which is sort of like literally a 2-level joke. Mm-hmm. So you've got kind of, again, the sort of stuff that Wes Anderson ends up doing with the, action going on 2 different floors at the same time.
Well, I also wondered, because he's in the apartment below them, which I figured was that old lady that hated him so much from the last movie.
Oh, she's dead now, huh? She's gone.
I didn't know if Dreyfuss killed her or what was going on there.
Oh yeah, she's dead. I mean, if Dreyfuss's record is able to go by, he snapped her neck and thought no more about it. But the other thing that I kind of notice is that, and I guess it makes total sense, they've been working together at this for over 10 years now, just how in sync Sellers and Kwok are as a double act in this scene. Mm-hmm. Like the even the screams are in tandem, right? They're
sure
completely they're kind of doing that thing, that great kind of physical comedy thing of they almost seem like one person split across two bodies.
Yeah.
And that comes with, working together over that period of time, I think. So it's sort of reached its zenith of their performances.
There's that, and then the thing that I was wondering about, I started thinking, he's so gifted in these scenes, but for the most part in these movies, this is the only time we see him. And I thought, is there any actor that's gotten more mileage out of a small character in any movie? Because who doesn't remember Kato?
That's not played by Steve Buscemi? Probably not.
Correct.
That's who they should have gone to when they were rebooting Kato. That would have solved the racial problem as well. It would just be called Kato, but he'd just be this weird-looking white guy. That would totally work.
You're right.
And, Blake Edwards is turning on the cinematic innovation, because once Dreyfuss gets his eye hole covered with various substances,
yes,
he can no longer see, but Blake Edwards is still doing this kind of peephole view. So the peephole view is not Dreyfuss's perspective because his eyes are covered in nonsense.
Right.
But slapstick nonsense. But he's gone, oh, I like this point of view. Let's play with it a bit more.
Sure. Having a little fun as a director. That's fine.
Yeah, I admire the fact that he never stops experimenting.
Yeah.
Like, as a fifth film in the series, I mean, I don't know how much longer this is going to go on, so
right.
That's also why I wanted to bring this up now. I don't think we'll be saying this about anything involving Roberto Benigni, but
Agreed.
Who knows? I mean, I live to be surprised. But at this point, he's not resting on his Laurel and Hardy's directorially.
You can't resist anymore.
Yet another reference. I am driving into the ground with David Letterman style. Yeah. And then we've got the...
So now we have a random Quasimodo disguise.
Well, it's the disc. So I kind of like the idea that even the movie knows that there are too many disguises in this movie, because he seems to be buying these mass-produced disguise kits.
Right.
Which is the movie's way of saying that this is kind of getting a bit much. I guess it also leans into the Roadrunner of it all, I think.
Very much so.
Which, they established in the previous movie with the Acme pool service and the going into the swimming pool, and I think this is...
And let's not forget, this is 1976. I know, a lot of those cartoons...
Well, we don't because of the anal sex gag. It won't let us forget. Anyway, carry on, sorry. I didn't mean to step on your point.
Well, I was going to say, I think most of the cartoons I grew up on, those Looney Tunes, were probably done in the 50s, but
yeah,
you can't discount how huge they were in the 70s.
Oh, they were, yeah.
And they were everywhere.
Yeah.
So the idea that Blake Edwards would draw on that as an inspiration in his movie, I don't think is far-fetched.
Yeah, and I seem to remember a quote from Spike Milligan, who worked with Sellers on the Goon Show, saying, he would openly steal his material from Bugs Bunny.
That's great.
It was sort of like he like anything anyone said, oh, how did you think of that? He would say, I stole it from Bugs Bunny. And I think a lot of the same things. Yeah, they were for. It's interesting because it was less for kind of animation nerds, more for comedians.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even that it was a cartoon. It was that it was good comedy.
Yeah.
Because its tradition came from, the silent movie era.
Sure.
Which kind of became those the legacy of that was those cartoons, and then live action filmmakers picked up the mantle, and Mel Brooks the end of Blazing Saddles feels like the end of a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Absolutely.
And I think he's probably admitted as much. I mean, he's the guy who said you got to know who to steal from. It's the most important aspect of his work.
Of anyone's work.
I like the sort of the edge again, the edge of surrealism, something that you kind of get, you only really get when you've got people like Peter Sellers and Blake Edwards doing this kind of material. So the idea of him floating away on the hump,
That's the part, yeah.
like it inflates and it turns into a balloon. I mean, again, it feels like Looney Tunes, but it's also, you can imagine like a Python sketch ending this way. Like
Yes.
it's like, how do we end the sketch? Well, in the most absurd way possible, and that's what we're doing here. So I like that turn, even though there was a little bit of foreboding about him bringing out the disguises quite so early.
Quite so early, yes. And it didn't seem like he really needed it either.
Nope, and never uses it again.
Nope.
For any reason.
But it's funny you mention Monty Python, because over these last two films, I started wondering about Monty Python in the same way we've been wondering about James Bond, who's what's drafting off of what, and who's influencing who, because it feels like there's some synergy between these two entities.
Yeah. Well, Monty Python came from the Goon Show radio comedy, which was one of whom was Peter Sellers. So there is a kind of cycle going on here, and then Python take off in between the Goon Show and Sellers' film career. But I think Sellers, with his kind of film work in the 60s and 70s, kind of buys some of that back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then, then the Monty Python as a film, not just a poster, as a film series, as a film series, they start to take off in the late 70s and early 80s. And so I think there is this, the short answer is yes, because there wouldn't have been Monty Python without the Goon Show, and Peter Sellers was one of the goons. But there is, as it goes on, I think they start to influence each other in different ways.
Yeah.
Like coming out of TV and going into film, and then vice versa.
All right. Meanwhile, we're going to get the master plan, right? And Dreyfus is going to escape.
Right, and I'd say this was a fugitive pull. But I was even more sure after the Batman themed title sequence. I mean, it's clearly they know about 60s television enough to make that, because the whole sort of train crash escape thing is straight out of the Fugitive TV series, even at that point. And also, something that's also good is the first time we've ever, and a first for the series, we're getting the chance to see Clouseau as the chief.
Yes, right.
And the best thing about it is absolutely nothing has changed. There is no discernible difference in being a chief inspector as an inspector. And this is illustrated in the best way possible with his this kind of like this this kind of physical comedy two-step of him leaning back into the wall and then hitting his head on the wall, and then pulling himself down with Francois' tie, which bangs his head on the desk.
So good.
So that's our introduction to Clouseau as chief. And again, that's a one of those often seen outtakes of Peter Sellers trying to get through this sort of 1-2 comedic punch without laughing to himself.
Right.
And I sympathize. I mean, it the whole idea of just pulling Francois' tie down and making his face hit on the desk is just fantastic.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. I was reading a little bit about I finally watched a Pink Panther featurette, and Blake Edwards was in there talking about how he essentially taught Peter Sellers how to do physical comedy, because he came straight from radio comedy. And according to Blake Edwards, had no physical comedy skills when he did the first Pink Panther movie, and that it was literally Blake Edwards giving him his mark and walking him through it.
That's crazy to me. Wow.
If true.
Yes, correct.
I imagine Peter Sellers would tell a slightly different story.
I'm sure he would.
Were he alive to do it. And it doesn't really, I acknowledge that he was probably pretty green as a screen actor. But that would only make sense if they always worked as a duo, because it's not like Peter Sellers, in Being There, or Doctor Strangelove.
Doctor Strangelove
can't reach the same levels.
Yeah.
So either he is a quick learner, or Blake Edwards might be overstating the point somewhat.
Slightly.
Yes.
All right. Well, we got a good start. Why don't we take a first break and then we'll come back?
Yeah, and then we'll go back to England, which this series has not fared well in before. So we'll see if it comes out a little cleaner this time.
We'll find out. There's one performance in there that I really like.
Oh, I think I know which one you mean.
Okay, we'll find out.
And it might also be someone who appears in a couple of Kubrick movies.
Ooh.
Something about beer. But nowadays, even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day, you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need. The Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here just getting started with The Pink Panther Strikes Again, the 1976 film directed by Blake Edwards. Well, as you said, Tom, we now got to go to cheery old England.
Yeah, we're in New Scotland Yard, which have been one of the first times that we'd ever seen the revamped Scotland Yard with the spinning...
On film?
With the spinning, what do you call it? The spinning sign. all that prevarication for that one.
I was like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah. And dangerously close to Inspector Clouseau territory. But, I feel like we've got the stable of UK character actors to carry us through here. It's one of the best. I mean, if you take the Britain part of the movie, it's one of the most successful parts of the movie, I think.
I agree.
As soon as he gets into the country house, fun times ensue. I mean, there's the sort of the finding of the not secret door, which is just such a great character joke of like he's found a door that is not disguised, and then I don't know about you, and again I think when people argue for this movie, they talk about the sequence, the treadmill reveal.
The treadmill, yeah,
I think is one of the all-time.
I think it's so funny.
Visual gags in the series, maybe even in this decade of cinema.
And let's talk about Blake Edwards again, because he draws no attention to certain things, including the fact that Clouseau's wearing two different shoes. It's just amazing. I mean, it's just fantastic, Just let those things sit. Let people find them.
And at root, I think one of the reasons I think it is so successful is it's a subgenre of visual humor that I'm attracted to, which is the perspective gag, and it's kind of rare. You don't see it that often.
Mm-hmm.
Another movie that I think of whenever I think of perspective gags is Sideways.
Yeah,
which seems to be a movie that's fallen off a lot of people's radars, and maybe it was a bit overrated at the time. It won far too many Oscars, I think, for what it was, but It has, and honestly, when they take the handbrake off the car and it veers into the background of the shot and then passes the tree it's supposed to hit and just keeps on going. I mean, I was guffawing as much as anyone.
Sure.
Guffawing out of my shoes in the movie theater. And I don't know, there's something inherently funny to me about a perspective gag. The idea that that your perspective is different from what you think it is.
Yeah, sure.
And this is a great one because it's just the idea that he's walking down a secret
passageway of some sort,
and he's stationary on a treadmill. Yeah, no notes, Pink Panther Strikes
Gets me
Again.
every time.
And I think, when the moment, and I've watched this moment so many times, but the moment when the light goes on and you see Sellers' face, like he's bought into into the fiction of him walking down a secret
hallway, which is great.
And then we have the parallel bars.
The parallel bars,
moment
correct.
Where, which is
down the stairs.
Is very much not Peter Sellers.
No, that's obvious, but it doesn't bother me for a second either.
No,
just the brashness of that cut shot to falling off down the stairs is.
Yeah,
it's kind of a perspective shot as well, in the sense of he's far enough away.
It is. Yeah,
you should have no doubt that it could be. Mm-hmm. Inspector Clouseau, and yet you have no doubt that it isn't him, the actual actor. And for some reason, that just actually, there's a level of comedy within that does make me chuckle.
I mean, yeah.
I don't know what it is, but
well, this is what grew out into the sort of self-aware stunt performer comedy of like the Naked Gun movies, right? Mm-hmm. when they're actually making a point of replacing Leslie Nielsen with a stuntman.
Sure.
For certain shots. Like, this is sort of the seeds of that are here as well, because, it's the cut is so abrupt from it being Clouseau to it being this other guy.
This professional athlete.
So I think that's what we're responding to, is sort of how on the nose it is.
Yeah.
That it shifts to a stuntman. And then we're sort of, when he gets downstairs, we're kind of doing a reenactment of Shot in the Dark.
Yeah, it did feel like
kind
that.
Kind of a mini sort of a mini-sode of Shot in the Dark.
These were the times where I gave a couple of dings to this movie. I have dings for the previous movie in the terms of the two separate stories. The dings for this movie is that we're starting to retread.
Yeah.
We already have the rip the pants joke. Now we're doing this end of a Shot in the Dark kind of wholesale almost.
Yeah.
Still funny though.
I think it's funny too, and I guess the flip side of that coin is playing to Peter Sellers' strengths.
Sure, yeah.
Because we know he can do this kind of material really well. And it ends, with a bullet in Leonard Rossiter's ass, and
yes,
that's kind of, how can you complain about that? Is he the actor that you?
Yeah, I was gonna say he's my. I love this performance from him. I think he's very funny.
Yeah, and he's a kind of, certainly in British culture, he's sort of like a minor Peter Sellers in terms of the kind of actor he is.
Mm.
He, famous mostly from a couple of different television sitcoms in the UK, but then he made a name for himself internationally doing Stanley Kubrick movies, Barry Lyndon and 2001.
Yeah.
So he and Sellers have a kind of similar trajectory as actors. So it's interesting. It's great to see them together.
Yeah, one of the things I think I liked the most about it was, I don't know if I should give credit to just Rossiter or credit to Edwards as well, because Edwards allows something that he hasn't ever let happen in any of the other movies, which is there's a character in the room with Clouseau that is keenly aware of how dangerous Clouseau can be at all times by accident. And to watch him sort of shrug a shoulder or
right, yeah.
take a turn away or flinch when he does something very benign is a lot of fun to watch. And
Yeah.
you know, to see his little donut and that he has to sit on and all that stuff. I mean, anyway, I just thought the performance was kind of truly unique within these 4 movies that we've watched.
Agreed. No, that's a really interesting point.
Thank you.
I happen to be no, it is. I hadn't thought about that at all, and I think you're absolutely right. I wonder whether they were kind of screen testing a new superior for Clouseau in some sense.
Having
this character in the movie. I happened to be reading a book about modern British history when I watched this film, so the line with the trouble with France we've been having really resonated for me, and I wondered whether it was a reference to the thwarted entry of Britain into the EEC in the 1970s. But it could be. The timing works. Yeah, and then sort of a couple more of my dings against the movie. You know what I'm talking about, the gay bar.
Mm-hmm.
It's again, in the Pink Panther movies, I feel more uneasy than offended. So I feel like it's more like with these representations we're on uneasy ground, but I never fully get that sense of Breakfast at Tiffany's abject shock and horror.
Right.
Krusty the Clown doing the flapping dicky, saying "me so sorry."
Yes, correct.
Right? You know what I mean? It's like it just teeters right on the edge of kind of homophobic and anti-trans humor without ever going fully over the edge into something that is shockingly offensive. Like it's just kind of a bit backward and a bit sort of lazy. It's not.
It definitely does feel lazy.
It's kind of not. Yeah.
But I couldn't really put my finger on what it is about the Pink Panther movies where there are things within these movies that are problematic.
Yeah.
Kato is a kind of a perfect example where we acknowledge there are problems with Kato, but on its base level, Kato's very funny. And
yeah. I mean, look at a few years later, you've got actually not that long after this, you've got the character of Manuel in Fawlty Towers, right? I mean, by modern standards, shocking racial stereotype, but is it funny? Yes, and it still is.
Well, and it goes on when you think of, say, Hank Azaria in Birdcage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good call.
It's still the same exact kind of thing,
Yeah.
There's 2 stereotypes within that character.
I guess what we're saying is if you're gonna be offensive, be funny.
Yeah.
Be funny with it.
At the
and
very
then at least
least,
you've got a
be
chance.
funny. A terrible thing to say.
It is, but we both know it's kind of true, don't we? It's like there's a Chris Rock line. There's a Chris Rock, I guess punchline is what it is. It's something that the perspective I fundamentally disagree with. But the punchline itself is just too good not to laugh at, and it's if the line is with regards to bringing up children, if you're calling your grandmama mama and your mama Pam, you're going to jail. And there's so much wrong with that statement socioculturally, but the expression of it is very funny. Because it's almost undeniable when you put it like that.
Of course.
Anyway, but so this is kind of flirting in similar territory, but none of this kind of gay bar with the parrot, which I assume is the same parrot from this and several Bond films.
Yes, right. Right, you are.
And and the sort of the drag queen performer.
Well, with in regards to the gay and the trans kind of humor, I wrote down that it feels like he's warming up for Victor Victoria.
Definitely, yeah. He doesn't have a good record on this subject.
Yeah, he's working his way towards his opus of inappropriate humor towards these two groups.
And I presume you did. I'm trying to remember. I have heard the episode, but when you talked about Victor Victoria, I'm pretty sure you talked about because it came from a 1930s property, right? Like it started out as a.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And yet, in 1982, they're reviving it as if gender politics haven't changed in that
entire
time.
But that's also the trap of, because that movie's also set in the past. So it's not 1982
so it's fine.
either.
Yeah, that's all right. Do you want then?
Yeah, all right. That's how they get away with it.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Well, that's you can have more rape in a historical drama than you could in a film set in 2024 and get away with it. Let's face it. Because then you just go, oh yeah, that stuff went on all the time back then.
Yeah, it happened. Can't tell me people weren't raped.
I don't quite know why I'm seeing so much of it, but
during the time of Rob Roy,
it doesn't seem oh yeah, there's so much rape in that film.
Yeah.
Rape and dead animals. That's what I remember from Rob Roy.
That's your key memories.
Yeah, and it was still better than Braveheart.
Yeah.
And isn't there a scene where Jessica Lange just has a piss?
Oh, I don't remember.
In the middle of a scene.
Does she?
Like she just squats in the middle of a stream and you see her pissing. I was like, what is going on? Like, who thinks I want to see this? Anyway. Tim Roth, one of the great all-time villain performers.
Villains. Really great villain.
And this is where, at least in my notes, we go to the the kind of Hammer horror castle in which
very
Dreyfus
much so.
is
Dreyfus is
located.
Nuts.
So that the universal monsters in the titles kind of have
makes sense.
This somewhat, yeah. And he's full on. I mean, yeah, he's gonna build the Doomsday Machine and conquer the world. I mean, he's a full on Bond villain, and there's even a reference to Dr. Strangelove in there with the Doomsday Machine.
He's one short pinky in the mouth away from being Dr. Evil.
He would have made a great Blofeld. I'm surprised if they went with Charles Gray. I don't know. There's no reason why they shouldn't have gone with Herbert Lom.
Probably didn't want to confuse the two series.
Plus, if he'd have taken off his rug, he could
even
have
better.
done Telly Savalas. Yeah. Even just, this is what I wrote down. I wrote down, just have him as the Blofeld at the beginning of For Your Eyes Only. Right? The one that we can't say is Blofeld for legal reasons. Why can't that be Herbert Lom?
I wrote down, I mean, obviously, yes, it feels very Bond. But also in terms of his castle, they're drawing on other stuff, because I wrote that Dreyfus is on the set of The Phantom of the Opera.
Well, and his demise is pure Phantom of the Opera,
Absolutely,
isn't it?
Yes.
And all intentionally,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is also where the White House gets involved in the.
I thought this was very funny because if you'll notice in the Oval Office, there's an awful lot of bookshelves without any books on them.
Yeah, deliberately, I think.
I thought that was really good.
And there, he's the sort of ersatz Jerry Ford, really, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a Ford. He's a Ford character for sure.
I mean, without saying this is Jerry Ford, it's Jerry Ford.
Yeah.
And all the perceptions around that historical personage at the time. I think
Mm-hmm.
the kind of imposter in the White House sort of man.
Yeah,
out
I
of his
mean,
depth.
it almost feels like they're drafting off of Chevy Chase on SNL.
Yeah, yeah. Also, there's a couple of his advisors are both played generals in the Superman movies.
Yeah, I know. I thought the same thing.
It's like
the two sets look remarkably similar.
they do, and also, and I wrote it down in such a jaded way as well. My note reads, as well as the usual Superman actors who play generals. So I feel like we've done this to death at this point.
Right.
Yeah, and the design of the Doomsday Machine is full Goldfinger.
Mm-hmm.
As well. And then we go into the interesting, kind of quite Hitchcockian sequence, which is the Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
He puts the hit out on. He puts
He's having the
fatwa,
12 best
essentially.
assassins. It feels like Empire Strikes Back is what it feels like too.
Oh, interesting.
When the bounty hunters gather.
One of those generals is also in.
Yeah.
You're a good man, Solo. I hate to lose you.
I hate to lose you.
Yeah, and so it seems to be going for a sort of a level of kind of, and we've seen this before in the Blake Edwards Pink Panther movies. The lighter side of Hitchcock, like the frothier side of Hitchcock, he's kind of drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like even more so than like High Anxiety. It feels like, which in many ways is like a film Hitchcock could have made. Even
right.
He was at the premiere, and I believe he made the same point. He was like, that's me up there. But with this, it's sort of like it's like Hitchcock done a slapstick.
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean the assassination attempts are out there in big time in the world of slapstick with the what is it, nail gun titties and little person assassins. So
yeah, a rare
more problematic.
a rare non-creature suited Deep Roy.
Yeah, right.
That's a remarkable. That's a kind of remarkable cameo. You don't normally see Deep Roy without a creature suit attached to him. So I like seeing that, and obviously the reference to Rosa Klebb with the spiked tits.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of with the pretzels, and then the bathroom scene seems to me to be what Austin Powers is riffing on.
That's what I thought so too.
Which makes total sense. You know, that through line from Peter Sellers to Mike Myers is definitely there. Right.
It's a frozen rope between the two.
Frozen rope. I love that. And then speaking of 1960s film stars, Omar Sharif.
I know, just pops in to say hello.
Yeah, I love like he's not even credited in the movie, and I just think this is just such a wonder. Like making him one of the assassins is such a brilliant idea,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that he sort of, he's mistaken for Clouseau and ends up getting killed is such a nice touch.
Because he kills the imposter, right? Because we have more.
Yeah, so he ends. Yeah. It's why that woman, that female assassin, thinks he's such a good lover, is because she's had sex.
She was with
Omar
Omar
Sharif
Sharif
accidentally. The downside of it, I think, is kind of as with the Return of the Pink Panther. You have a really long sequence right before the last third of the film, so.
Yeah.
Again, there's that pacing problem. When you want to be picking up the pace, we're slowing it down.
We're slowing down, right?
Because this scene goes on for a long time.
Long time.
I think a lot more goes on than some of the other scenes we've talked about, but it has a lot more twists and turns. But still, you could shave off a good 10 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
And still, the point would be made.
Because, I mean, we need Omar to leave. We need Clouseau to come in. We need sort of lights on, lights off, that kind of humor, back to kind of a shot in the dark that we've seen before.
And Pink Panther, yeah.
And then they have to actually meet, even though
Yeah.
she thinks she's already met him. So it does go, it carries on a bit.
I guess, you see a little bit of a flash of tit in the nightlight.
Shadow tit?
Shadow tit. Silo tit.
I'm not above a silhouette of tit.
Well, no, but I feel, again, like, you wouldn't be able to do that in 1964 or 3, whenever that movie really came out.
Right.
But you couldn't, it's the end of the 70s. It's like now, it's basically, it goes back to the anal sex gag. Porn is in cinemas. You can kind of do what you want now. We went from like you weren't even allowed to be in the same bed to, actual people having actual sex in movies that you can walk down the street and see. So
right.
Yeah, we can have a flash of tit in the nightlights.
I mean, and this is the time exactly. This is the time of Hollywood where you could see under 2 seconds of boob and still have a PG movie.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. That's it. That's interesting. Yeah. And this, I sound like a broken record here, but the scene when they discover the fake Clouseau in the bath, this is exactly the scene from Diamonds Are Forever when where Sean Connery kills that guy in the lift and then puts his wallet in there, and Jill St. John says, "You killed James Bond." And it also comes after having recast the character unsuccessfully once. So
true.
Same thing. Same scene.
I won't disagree. I can't.
And speaking of recast,
I won't.
The other kind of recasting, we've got Graham Stark back as a interest, like
a feisty desk clerk.
A feisty desk who delivers the immortal line that everyone remembers from this movie and the Pink Panther series. But it's remarkable to me, again, that they don't bring back the character of Hercule.
I know. It is strange.
He's probably more famous for being this clerk than he is that character, which is strange to me.
Yeah, correct.
But it's another all-time great comic moment.
Oh, I love it. And I would have bet it was in the previous film before we watched them.
I thought it was. I really did think it was.
Yeah.
I'd merged it with the organ grinder and the monkey. I thought it was the organ grinder, and the monkey bit him or something.
Well, like you said, it's an all-time great line. Why don't we take one more break and then we'll come back and finish up?
Sure, yeah. We're pile driving through this.
Yeah, we're going nuts.
This movie. We know nuts, we crazy.
We'll be right back.
Since I've already broken the seal on fake Asian accents, there we go.
That's just your interpretation of a real accent. Like I do. Boy, do I have a treat for you. You need to
stay on target
and check out the Sounds in Cinema podcast. Listen as your host, sound designer and music creator Tony Parham, and co-host, musical performer and sound lover Derek Hansen, D-Rock if you're nasty, and I am, discuss all things sound related to film, television, stage, and theatrical productions. They discuss environmental sounds, bioacoustics, dialogue, the nature of communication through sound, but as an added bonus, they drink beer and try to
stay on target.
Find them wherever you get your podcasts and listen to the pure mania of a man who can charitably be described as Doug, the dog from Up, and another man with a soothing and sultry voice trying to get that man to
stay on target.
That's the Sounds in Cinema podcast. Tune in and listen to the sounds they are creating just for you. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here, finishing up, kinda, sorta.
Yeah.
We got 4 more movies to do, but finishing up for now.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, yeah. I don't know. I have the first time I've ever thought, is there any way we could cover those all in one episode? Probably not, right? Maybe the last 2.
Us? That's crazy.
That is crazy. We'll probably take longer to talk about Son of the Pink Panther than any of these movies.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes.
Yeah, given how long we talked about the Star Wars prequels, my God.
Offensive.
On every level.
We should be ashamed.
Yeah.
Now, where are you? Because I'm at the moat, I think.
Yes, that's exactly where I am. And this is, I think, normally the music kind of complements the comedy really well in these movies, but I feel like they're leaning too hard on the music in this sequence. I wanted it to be either more understated music or ideally complete silence, because I think visually what he's doing is up there with, his stuntman is doing is up there with Harold Lloyd, but the score just feels like a hat on a hat. Really.
I agree.
It's like, so we talked about a little bit about like this in Cannonball Run too, like gilding the lily with the orangutan, right?
Yeah, right.
Do you need circus music really when an orangutan is driving a car? No. We get the idea. This is circus-like material already. It doesn't need circus music to go with it.
How would you know, Tom? How else would you know it's circus-like?
Yeah, I know. Well, quite. I liked it, but I think it would have worked better comedically were it.
I think it reaches
visual.
I think it reaches a whole different level if it was in complete silence. To see the different ways he's trying to attack this moat.
I think it would be hilarious.
I think it sets it off in a completely different way that makes the whole scene so much funnier.
Yeah. Yeah. That's 70s movies. Man with the Golden Gun, same problem with the one of the best stunts ever recorded on film, but they put a penny whistle in the middle of it for no reason. They're like, come on. You couldn't just let that breathe? No one's ever going to be able to do that stunt on film ever again. That's literally once in a lifetime piece of driving.
Yeah.
Like, even the guy who did it didn't think he could pull it off.
Right. He does call the moat a swine moat, which I thought was funny.
It's very funny.
Because he keeps falling into it.
What are we at? Disguise number 3? Now?
I think so. Yeah. He's the dentist. He's got the nitrous oxide.
Melting prosthetics.
Did you take note of his pronunciation of leverage, where he's talking leverage? I thought, did Johnny Depp watch this fucking movie? Because that seems...
guaranteed. Yeah.
He very much borrowed that for Captain Jack.
Yeah. Oh, Johnny Depp, he idolized Buster Keaton. No reason why he wouldn't Peter Sellers as well. Teeth stuff in films is always horrifying, even when it's supposed to be funny.
Even when it's funny, yeah. Because this...
is Marathon Man out yet?
I was going to say that this feels very Marathon Man, even though it's supposed to be... I have the same reaction to it as I do with Marathon Man.
It's not... Yeah, it's not some... It's a little bit like Eyes. It's nothing to kind of joke about.
Right.
With both of those areas of the face, it's all... Anything bad that happens is the worst thing that's ever happened to you in your life. Ugh. Yeah, and so his prosthetics melt off his face. And it's kind of interesting because that the disguise allows them to have a different relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because at that point he's just an incompetent dentist with a mild-mannered patient. But then as soon as his prosthetics melt off, then it becomes the regular relationship between them. So it's like we get to have two different scenes in the same scene.
Yeah, sure.
And all we have to do is melt Sellers' face off.
Which in and of itself is pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And Dreyfus is trying to blow up
England.
The whole... And it all goes down like the third act of every Bond film, right? The escaping from the villain's lair, which is exploding. Except there's a moat there, right? That's their little twist, that little comedic twist on it, is that there's a moat that's going to that's going to hinder your escape.
Your escape.
Mm-hmm. And then the amazing disappearing of Dreyfus.
Clouseau's got to get into his knight's armor too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay, that counts as a disguise. It's not looking good.
Oh, I don't know about a disguise. Come on.
Okay, all right. Okay. Well, but doesn't he get in one in Pink Panther too? Isn't that what he's wearing at the costume party in Pink Panther?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a callback to that. But still no wife. Okay.
No callback to the wife. No.
No callback to the wife, no.
Because he falls out a window onto the Doomsday device, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's a kind of accidental James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes total sense. Yeah, and then this whole... I mean, it's a spectacular end for Dreyfus.
It's quite a bit.
You know, his legless Dreyfus playing the organ as he disappears and then implodes. It's quite something to behold.
The last thing we see is his twitchy, blinking eye.
And this is one of those... I'm trying to come up with a term to describe this, but when you... I guess... Once we get to the Fast and Furious movies, we'll come up with suitable terminology. But, like, when, the difference between when a series starts and where it ends or where it goes at some point, when you can't see the interrelation between the two. And I think there are, like, if you just seen the first half of the Pink Panther, there's no way that you could quantify how it became this.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Do you know how the Fast and the Furious starts?
Is that the first one?
Yeah.
They're bootlegging combo DVD.
Like combo DVD VCRs. It's amazing.
And then they go to space.
And then in one of them they go to space.
That's all I know about that series, yeah.
That's all you need to know.
Excellent.
What I need is the latest in VCR DVD technology. P.S.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we be battling a submarine? Not for years.
The only way you could reconcile the two is if they went to space in a combo DVD VCR player.
Well, we'll get there.
Oh no. And I only counted one racial slur in the movie, but I was looking for quotes from the movie to do my quotables, and I found another one. So,
oh no!
But that's still less than Return of the Pink Panther. I feel like they were lighter on the racial slurs.
Another tick in the box for this movie.
But again, at least it happens at least twice.
Fewer racial slurs.
Yeah, and they're so close to the end of the movie, it just feels like they could have just pushed through without it.
Yeah. Well, so he goes home. Clouseau goes home to Olga, right?
Yeah.
We didn't talk about Olga at all.
Well, I mean, she's one of the assassins, right? She's hired by the...
Yes. But when Omar Sharif makes love to her, she decides she shouldn't kill him, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's The Spy Who Loved Me, but that movie has not been made yet. So it's crazy. And again, it's this Bond-like fuck palace that becomes his home, complete with Tom Jones, Bond's theme artist Tom Jones. And Clouseau's more the hero of these movies than he's ever been. He's like no one. Like he's at the top of the hierarchy now. He's chief inspector. Dreyfus is dead. Like, he's killed off his nemesis. I mean, he's riding as high as he's ever gonna ride in these movies.
I can't remember because I know there was a huge bed in this fuck palace, but was it a Murphy kind of bed?
Yeah.
Does Kato come out of the wall with it? Is that what happens?
I think it folds up into the wall, a la You Only Live Twice. But Kato, I believe, is hiding in the leopard skin bed sheets.
Okay. All right.
which you know you can't really go wrong with, even though it is a retread of the end of Shot in the Dark.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like I wonder whether like their logic is, people only see movies once. That was over 10 years ago. No one's gonna remember that we already
Probably,
did this.
yeah, maybe, yeah.
All they care about is what they're seeing now and how funny it is to them
Mm-hmm.
while they're watching it.
Certainly a possibility. We finish with a Jaws reference, and this is
That's it.
1976. So it's the year
master
after.
stroke, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't accuse this series of being out of date. Again, also scooping Spy Who Loved Me. They thought they were they thought they were riding the Jaws-ploitation wave by having a character called Jaws in it, but no, Pink Panther did it already.
This series once again beat you to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's just such a great. I love that they saved that to the very end, because it's like to the contemporary film audience that would have been hilarious. That would have just been like the cherry on the cake for them, that they're also mentioning the biggest movie of the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that and it's like the the E.T. pull in
Airplane 2.
Airplane 2.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to move even more quickly than. Oh, this was pretty quick. I mean, 76. I mean, they've not got much time to mess about, especially if they're animating it.
Yeah, and later on you have South Park with The Phantom Menace. Same year. Misa gonna die.
Yeah, there's advantages to making your movie last minute, and disadvantages. Yeah, so that's the credit check.
I was gonna say, do you have a further credit check for us?
Also, that they're clearly working on trying to get the Pink Panther integrated into live action again, because they have it. They have Clouseau floating back onto the water in tandem with the Panther.
Yeah, right.
And then, I think for the first time ever, it says Fiend.
Yes,
instead
right.
of the end.
Yeah.
Which is, I think like a last second send up of the popularity of European art movies.
Yeah.
At the time, that were big at the time, and also, the Frenchness of the series, or fake Frenchness of the series.
Yeah, it fits pretty well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's it. That's my.
What more could you possibly have?
That's my whole gambit. Well, nothing. There's nothing beyond Finn. You can't spell Finnish without Finn.
Understood.
Yes.
Well, let's do our inversion.
Oh. Why are we doing that?
No?
This is not a Patreon episode.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Never mind. I'll shut up. For some reason in my head, I thought we got to re-rank these. We already ranked them.
We already ranked them. So I guess the only thing to settle is have you flipped?
I don't think so.
Have you flip-flopped?
But it's
no, and I haven't flip-flopped either. I think,
but it really is so close.
It's a much slighter movie than I had it in my memory, and I think that's what I'm feeding off, which is slightly unfair. But at the same time, I feel like a movie has to justify itself over time to you.
Yeah. Okay.
For it to stay
a
good or great movie. Yeah. But certainly, conventional wisdom dictates that this is somewhat better than Return of the Pink Panther.
Yeah, I'm still not sure that I'm right, but I'm still sticking with my original assessment.
Wow. Never heard that before from you.
Yeah.
The second part, yes, not the first part.
I just, it's funny. I'm kind of split right down the middle on these two movies. I think the previous movie's probably I don't know, but this movie's trying to do something different too. I mean, we really are in the credit sequence kind of sets it all up. It wants to be a Looney Tunes. It wants to be that broad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's completely successful on those terms.
Yeah.
But when you juxtapose it against the previous film with Strikes Again and all that kind of Bond-esque kind of dual storytelling, it feels very naturalistic, a lot of that movie.
Yeah. Certainly, yeah. This is a hard left turn into fantasy. That's for
sure. Yeah.
And that doesn't bother. And that's not why I rank it lower. I think it is that sense of it diminished in my memory rather than just in reality. But also, I think on a these are comedies, and on a joke by joke basis, I think my favorite jokes are in Return, and that's why
That's where I'm
sticking with that.
That's where I'm starting to waver. Because I do think the jokes in that movie are better.
Yeah.
And it does have my favorite Kato attack.
Yeah. And, it's like choosing between seasons of The Wire. It's almost pointless that both are so good.
Your favorite is...
Panther Strikes Again doesn't have... By the way, the answer is season 3. But
because your favorite could be whichever one you're watching right now.
Well, I mean, 3 is it 3 or is it 4? And it's 3, but nonetheless, I'm happy to have that debate with anyone who wants to have it.
Well, we actually think alike on that one.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, most people go. Most people drift to 4 more naturally.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know. Amsterdam is pretty unbeatable.
Amazing.
Yeah. And kind of, I don't know if social policy makers watch The Wire. I guess they do. I mean, it's about them. But there's a lot of cities that have done a version of Amsterdam, and it's worked relatively well. Vancouver, where I just was, has a kind of designated kind of homeless section of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, they get 3 meals a day and social services looking after them.
All right.
Because there are worse things, like, America. Yeah. The concept of America, Sorry.
There are places not getting it right, like America.
There are places that are kind of missing the point a little bit. Yeah, we'll see how how true that is in November.
Yeah, we sure will. Yeah, I recently on one of our episodes you said there's no way that guy's gonna win. You sticking to that?
I am. I think. Yes, I mean, obviously it is possible he could win, but I don't think he will.
All right, fine.
Because I think Outrage will win the day.
It just might.
And I actually don't think Biden is as unpopular as some of the journalism that's been written around the first debate suggests.
Okay. We'll find out.
He hasn't just started using the word malarkey. Look at some of his debate performances from 2020. My God, that man is a loose cannon. Verbally. It's not really been that much degradation in that time. I think that's just wishful thinking.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I don't actually think he's that unpopular. I don't think Trump's as popular as... There's certainly no perspective. This is what you came to hear when you
keep talking. I'm cutting all of this out.
On the Pink Panther Strikes Again, you wanted to debate about who's going to win the 2024 election.
Now I have to keep it.
Meanwhile,
I was going to let you ramble, and then just cut it all out. But now it's funny. How dare you?
Yeah. Meanwhile, on news, on legitimate news projects, they're talking about Peter Sellers' melting nose. Ironically.
All right. Anything left for you?
No. I'm standing pat.
On strikes again?
Yes.
All right, then.
You know, sometimes you have to let go of your childhood. When you realize it's not all you thought it was. It's a very sad way of putting it, but I had a very nice childhood. But I don't know, this movie glowed a little brighter when I was younger than it does now.
The one where the childhood where you stole scissors?
Yes, that's right. I basically was young Clouseau. I'm surprised that's not been done yet. With all the variations we've had, young Clouseau? No one's attempted that. What are they thinking?
A teenage Clouseau?
Young Jacques.
Starring Michael Cera?
Yeah, who's a funny, rotund British person who's young and there aren't any. There aren't any fat British actors anymore. No, I'm not even. I mean, I'm being frivolous, but I'm not saying that to make a joke. Like, they're all sculpted, kind of, Tom Hardy types now.
They've gone the American way.
Well, they're all just psychopaths, as far as I can tell, in one way or another, and so they,
Sure.
they do that psychopath thing where they make their body into like a physical representation of their hatred of humanity. But where's the Robbie Coltrane? Like, I mean, apart from an older generation that survived, like Jim
right.
Broadbent or even what's his name, Lord Grantham from from Downton Abbey. He's still a bit. He's been in Hollywood a while now, and he's still a chub. Respect. No, honestly, like they look, even like that's what Hollywood does to fat people. It just, like, within a year they're thin.
Mm-hmm.
They're like dangerously thin. So anyone who's still a chub after several years of being
You'll
on the
celebrate.
Hollywood scene, I greatly, yeah.
Very good, then. All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, write your angry letters to the number of subjects we finished this podcast with.
There's someone furiously going, I don't know where to start. I don't know which letter to write first.
When you're finished, send that email to everythingsequel@gmail.com or copy and paste. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram. You will not find us, since we can't find ourselves on X. Can't get into that account, so no sense sending it there. We won't see it.
Well, I put a post on Threads. I don't really know what that means.
I don't know what it means either. I finally joined Threads, and then I get told that people have said things.
We're on the Everything Sequel podcast is on Threads. I don't know what it means to be on Threads. I just put up the same content I always do for any. So there's, it's certainly not medium specific, but it's another way to find us now that X/Twitter is not an option.
Instagram backed Threads, everyone. There you have it.
There we go. Much better ethically.
Can we? Hopefully, let's get some. Maybe we could get a little money to wet our beak for that.
People make money off Threads?
I don't know.
Or
we're
Instagram.
Promoting it.
Well, I think you need to do a bit more than. I think people already know those exist, don't they?
Yeah, but I said find us on it. I said, there you have it.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't think you understand
come
what
on.
advertising is.
I'm
I don't
selling.
You can't just be seen eating cornflakes and go up to the Kellogg's people and go, "Give me money. I just advertised your products."
Well, I don't see why not.
Yeah, now I say that out loud. That's not an unreasonable demand. I just ate a bowl of cornflakes outside.
Give me money.
You owe me money.
That's where the country's going, I tell you.
You know what? It's worth a try as an income stream. You know,
Could do worse.
it's one less side hustle.
All right, everyone. That's it. The next time you hear us, we're going to be pitching sequels to this
Oh
nonsense.
God!
So
You think
wish
this-
us the
you-
best
you
of
think
luck.
This is mad. Yeah.
In the meantime, you know what to do. I'm not going to say it again. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
Call the FBI, the CIA, and the Pentagon. Find out who won that game. I find that representation of the presidency oddly comforting in this historical moment.
Yeah.
I wish that those were the biggest problems we had.
I'd rather have the president who'd
sports
like to know the
obsessed
score of the
president.
game than the one who sits on the toilet rage tweeting.
Yeah. Yeah. Or using old-timey slang.